A nun was found murdered inside a chapel on the night before Easter, but what no one realized was that her killer had been there all along.
Sister Margaret Ann Pahl was 71 years old, and she spent her days caring for the chapel at Mercy Hospital in Toledo, Ohio. She was born April 6, 1909, the fourth of 9 children of farmers Frank and Catherine Pahl. Her family was devoutly Catholic, and she had cousins who were nuns, so it surprised nobody when she announced as a teenager that she was going to become a Sister of Mercy after finishing school. She'd been called to be a nun, she just knew. Her younger sister, Catherine Flagel, said, Sister Margaret Ann was trained as a registered nurse. She became the director of Mercy's School of Nursing and later administrator at St. Charles Hospital and Mercy Hospital. She spent her life in a place of peace, which makes what happened next even more disturbing.
In the days leading up to her death, those around Sister Margaret Ann noticed something was off. She had become upset, frustrated that things in the chapel weren't being done the way they should be. At one point, she even questioned why a service had been shortened, asking why did they cheat God out of what was His? But no one could have known what was about to happen next.
On the morning of April 5th, 1980, Holy Saturday, Sister Margaret Ann woke up early. She started her day like she always did, moving through the hospital, preparing for Easter services. She gathered cleaning cloths, incense, and began getting the chapel ready. By around 6:45 that morning, she was heading toward the chapel, and that would be the last time she was seen alive.
A short time later, another nun walked toward the chapel. She noticed something unusual in the hallway, a folded piece of cloth. She picked it up and set it aside. Then she stepped into the sacristy, and that's when she screamed. She found Sister Margaret Ann lying near the altar. She had been brutally stabbed, over 30 times. 9 of the wounds appeared to form the shape of an inverted cross. Her body had been partially covered with an altar cloth. It looked less like a murder and more like something staged.
At first, investigators didn't know what they were looking at. The scene inside the chapel was unlike anything they had seen before. The scene raised more questions than answers. Was this a personal attack or something else entirely? Prosecutors thought the shape was deliberate and intended to humiliate Sister Margaret in death. They had seen her partially covered with the altar cloth and noticed her clothes and body were arranged to suggest she had been sexually assaulted. It wasn't clear that she had been, though. The positioning of the wounds, the altar cloth, it all suggested something intentional. Some even wondered if the murder had been staged to look like a ritual.
With no clear suspect, the investigation quickly became complicated. There were multiple people who had access to the chapel and no signs of forced entry, which meant whoever did this likely belonged there. At one point, investigators focused on a hospital employee as a possible suspect. He was arrested and put on trial, but was ultimately found not guilty.
With no solid leads, the case slowly went cold. Days turned into months, months turned into years. Eventually, the murder of Sister Margaret Ann Pahl faded into the background. But what no one realized was that the answer had been there from the very beginning.
For more than 20 years, the murder of Sister Margaret Ann Pahl remained unsolved. But in the early 2000s, everything changed. In 2003, police received a letter from a woman. In the letter, she claimed that a priest had sexually abused her when she was a child in a series of satanic ritual abuse that also involved human sacrifice. The woman used the name Survivor Doe. As investigators began to take a closer look, they started to notice something unsettling. These accusations were sent to the prosecutor's cold case unit. Forensic tests indicated a sword-shaped letter opener that had been found in the priest's apartment and stored without detailed examination was consistent with the weapon that inflicted the wounds. According to prosecutors, the tip of the opener fitted a wound in the jaw of Sister Margaret's body like a key in a lock. This priest had been at Mercy Hospital at the time of the murder. He had access to the chapel. He had been present in the days following Sister Margaret Ann's death. The priest's name was Father Gerald Robinson. And, in a chilling twist, he had even performed Sister Margaret Ann's funeral.
For decades, he had been hiding in plain sight. He was the chaplain at Mercy Hospital, where he ministered to the sick and terminally ill. In 2004, more than 20 years after the murder of Sister Margaret Ann Pahl, Father Gerald Robinson was arrested. He was convicted of the strangling and stabbing of Sister Margaret in the sacristy of a chapel of the hospital where they worked together. Prosecutors considered the shape of the stabbings were deliberate and intended to humiliate Margaret in death. In the priest's possession was a book describing how to perform the satanic black mass. They also found 3 witnesses who said they had seen the priest near the chapel around the time of the killing. The case went to trial on April 24, 2006. He was found guilty on all counts on May 11, 2006. In May of 2014, he had a heart attack and was transferred to the hospice unit of Franklin Medical Center. He maintained his innocence until the day he died. He died in the hospice unit on July 4th, 2014.
The murder of Sister Margaret Ann Pahl shocked an entire community, not just because of how brutal it was, but because of where it happened. A place meant for peace became the scene of something unthinkable. And for more than 20 years, the person responsible remained hidden in plain sight. A trusted figure, someone no one thought to question. Sometimes the truth isn't hidden, it's just the last thing anyone expects to see. But as for Sister Margaret Ann's family, the pain only grew as more details came to light. One of her sisters later said the only thing she could hope for was that Margaret had been strangled first before the rest. Just days after Easter, hundreds gathered for her funeral. As the service came to an end, a storm outside suddenly calmed, and as her casket was carried out, the sky went still. Her sister would later say it was so quiet, like God was telling us not to worry, that she'd made it to heaven. For her family, justice wasn't about a conviction. They believed that no matter what happened in this world, her soul was at peace. And in the end, they believed she was finally free. Well, chat, that disturbed me. It truly did. When I found this case and I wanted to talk about it on Easter, that is just wild that a priest, a man of God, would do something like that. And this was like the second case in America where a priest did something like that.
Yeah, she told me about this and I was like, what? And then she goes, yeah. And then he performed her funeral and I said, oh my God,
like,
that's just wrong.
For real, like, how could you, I don't even know how he could have kept like a straight face while doing that. What I didn't put in these notes is that there was allegedly rumors of a satanic cult ring going on with other priests in that church, but nothing could be confirmed. So there was nothing that the police could do about it. But it looks like this priest was like the main dude. And also the fact that they kept doing it, and that's how they got caught, was the survivor doe writing a letter.
Ugh. At least he got caught, I guess, but like he just lived his life forever. And then they were like, oh, you.
That's just wild. Like, poor Sister Margaret.
She was just minding her business.
She really wasn't. She was 71 years old.
Spent her whole life, the entire thing, minding her business.
Yeah. I hope I didn't ruin your guys' Easter watching that. But happy Easter to everyone who celebrates. But yeah, like and comment and subscribe. I hope you enjoyed this Easter special. If you did like this, we'll start doing like more true crime cases centered around holidays, because you guys really liked the Christmas ones, like the Covina Christmas Eve killing and then Janelle Matthews. Those did so good. So if you guys like this, we'll keep doing it. And for now, we will see you guys next time.